So welcome to this presentation on the key changes in ISO 9001-2015 and IATF 16949-2016 affecting the sales process in a typical automotive organisation. My name is Paul Hardiman, Director of Quality Partner. I've been working with quality management systems for 25 years and I'm an IATF witness auditor and trainer. So let's take a look at the sales process using the turtle diagram. Firstly, let's have a look at the inputs. Within IATF 16949-2016, there's even more emphasis on making sure that we understand the customer requirements. But not just the customer requirements, but we understand customer-specific requirements, particularly for recycling, environmental impact, and the characteristic requirements. Also, in our sales process, we need to understand the organisation's strategic direction. Where is our organisation going? What types of customers are we looking for? Are we looking for growth in a particular sector within the automotive industry? We also need to think about contingency requirements. If we're taking on board new business, what would be the consequences of not meeting customer requirements? And how are we going to put effective contingency plans in place to make sure that we always deliver to meet the customer requirements? One of the big changes that we see in IATF 16949-2016 is further emphasis on understanding our organisation capacity. In previous versions of IATF 16949, capacity has been inferred, but there have been no specific requirements that have mentioned capacity planning. Now, in about 4 places within IATF 16949, it mentions that we have to have an effective capacity planning process. So that is one of the significant changes that we need to bring within the scope of the quality management system. How we're taking on board new business, do we make sure that we've got adequate capacity? Now let's take a look at the output of the sales process. Obviously, one of the outputs could be that we've done our feasibility review and we've decided that we are going to quote the customer. But maybe we've done our feasibility review and decided that we're going to decline the potential new business. This may be as something that we've identified within the feasibility review, or it may be some of the risks that we've identified in working with a potential customer that has asked for the quotation. We also need to make sure that if we are quoting new business, that we have adequate capacity within our organisation, that if the customer decides to place their business, that we will be able to meet their requirements. Now let's take a look at people that are involved in the sales process. First of all, ISO TS 16949 says that we have to demonstrate that we have a competent process owner responsible for the sales process. Whereas this may actually be the case, you need to maintain documented information on what are the requirements for competence to be the owner of the sales process and how has the person in that position got the relevant skills. Secondly, we need to make sure that we have a multidisciplinary team to make sure that we can meet the customer, technical and their capacity requirements. This should not just be done by an individual, but it should be done by a cross-functional team. The next thing is we need to make sure that we have employees competent in the sales process that are able to interface with all the relevant customer systems and understand all the relevant customer-specific requirements. This was not a documented requirement in the previous ISO TS 16949. It was inferred, but not a specific requirement. But now we need to make sure that we can demonstrate competence of people working within the sales process in interfacing with all the relevant customer systems. So now for a quick summary of changes that may affect the sales process within your organisation. The first thing is that customer-specific requirements are even more prominent. We need to make sure that we understand the customer requirements, we've evaluated to make sure that we can meet the requirements, and we've included the requirements within the scope of the quality management system. This again was inferred in the previous version of ISO TS 16949, but is now even more at the forefront in the IATF automotive standard. The second requirement that I think there is more emphasis on is in the sales process, specifically understanding product safety requirements. There is now an auditable requirement that talks about understanding product safety. So a key element of this requirement is that we need to understand that if we're taking on potential new business, we understand where the product that we're quoting for is going to fit within the vehicle, whether that be a car, a bus, a truck or a motorcycle, and what are the safety related considerations that we need to understand related to that product, and that we understand the risks before we quote to manufacture that product, that we understand all the potential safety concerns that could be affected within that product that we're going to manufacture, and how we would propose to control safety within our product realization process. So it's not new, but there's more emphasis on product safety. The third big change is understanding not just about the product that we're quoting on, but at the end of the life of the product, how that product is going to be disposed of. Some of you would have heard of the end-of-life vehicle directive. I think this requirement is very much linked to that, and it links within the theme about sustainability and recycling. So we need to consider the disposal of materials within the contract review process. The next thing, we need to understand contingency planning. Particularly, we need to understand the customer requirements related to contingency planning, because there may well be big penalties that if we do not deliver product on time in full to meet the customer requirements, there may be big financial risks in not meeting those requirements. So again, we need to understand those risks within the contract review process. We see in the new IATF 16949 far more emphasis on capacity analysis and capacity planning as part of the feasibility review process. I think some vehicle makers that have been going through a period of growth have had big problems in suppliers being able to meet their capacity requirements, even though in theory they should have planned to be able to meet those new customer requirements. For some reason, the organisation has had inadequate capacity. So please make sure in reviewing the transition to IATF 16949 that you really make sure that you've got a robust capacity planning process and it is included within the scope of the quality management system. The last point I want to emphasise is personnel competence. So in previous ISO 9001 and in ISO TS 16949, there has always been a requirement to demonstrate competence of all personnel within the organisation. But now we see special emphasis on making sure that we've got personnel competent, for example, in capacity planning and capacity analysis, taking into account customer specific requirements. And also we've got competent people that can interface with all the relevant customer systems, including access to any customer portals. And we see a couple of requirements, 5.3.1 and 7.2.1, that talk about this. So in summary, there are changes that will affect the sales process, not completely new fundamental changes, but really more focus on capacity planning, on making sure we understand product safety and making sure that we've got competent people working within the sales process. So in conclusion, one of the key things in the sales process is that we need to understand the risk and opportunities. This is absolutely critical in making a successful transition from ISO TS 16949 to IATF 16949. If all risks are not understood, there could be major consequences and impact upon achieving customer satisfaction and achieving the organisation's strategic direction. So I think the sales process plays a critical role in making sure that if you're going to take on board new business, that you're doing it in a very structured and controlled way, fully understanding all the risks and opportunities within the process.